I have a weakness for robots, right? So when we started Awesome Foundation a couple years ago, the only thing that always got funded were kids and robots. Those were like the two things. If someone had a robot, me and Stuart would be like, okay, we don't care what it does, just give it some funding. And so then I joined the Maker Faire, and Nola was on the board of the Maker Faire. And when the robot theme came down from New York, we were like, okay, we know who we're going to talk to. And she said, come by in the morning, we're gonna do the little photo shoot, but I'm gonna talk to you. And I'm expecting robots to be there. Instead, it was brownies and freshly baked coffee cake, right? Yeah, because we took a lot of it with us. And she just sat down and talked to us about education, about children, about the ability for anyone to learn how to build anything if you just give them access, about leveraging certain benefits for other people and trying to create a larger community. And it was like one of the best mornings we ever had without a robot, right? And so today she obviously bought robots. She was just in California, but she'll tell you about it. Like literally flew back, I think, yesterday morning, and then I flew back Wednesday, and we were trying to get in contact with each other with like 9 hours time difference. And I was like, please bring robots. That's all I care about. If you just bring some robots, I'll do anything. So at first she's gonna speak, and you're gonna hear about how big her heart is, and then of course we're gonna get to some robots.
Good morning. Good morning. That was okay. I'll do it again. Good morning. Good morning. Good, that's better. Thank you all for being here. You could have chosen to be anywhere else, and you showed up today, and that's awesome. Showing up is a big thing that we talk about with our kids, and being intentional about what we do and being conscious. So when Malik approached me, we were at a meeting at the Museum of Science, and he said, so you're like the robot lady. You know, I was like, okay. And so he asked me what I thought was going to be a radio interview. I was like, sure, no problem. And like everything else in life, it evolved into this amazing production. So I got to learn about Creative Mornings. I got to learn about, you know, this whole great society that we have here in Miami that is just blossoming and growing. And so as Malik mentioned, I just came back from California with my husband. There's my husband, my better half. Bill Garcia. We have a company called Starbot. It is a not-for-profit that was started not really intentionally, but kind of grew out of a need for kids to have a place to design and build competitive robots. And so if you had asked me 25 years ago if I would be in the robot business, I would have said, are you nuts? I studied psychology. I'm into all these soft-sided things. And like I mentioned before, everything evolves. I've always been interested in kids. In my high school yearbook, it said loves MGs and kids, and that's still true today. So when you asked me about robots, I said, wow, you know, that's such a broad term. And what do I talk about? And so he asked me, well, what do you want to put on the tag? And I said, if you were a robot, what kind of robot would you be? So I'm looking around at everybody. And before I go into who I am and what I do, I'd love to hear from you, because I want this interactive. What kind of robot would you be? Somebody who told me they wanted to be a dancing robot? Yeah. Anybody else? A space traveling robot. Good. The kind that makes pancakes consistently great. Yeah, I like that. One who cleans windows. I put underwater robot, but thinking about it, I'd really rather have a laundry doing robot. Because my husband thinks we have a little magical genie in our house. You put stuff in the hamper and it magically appears somewhere else. Yeah, not yet. Anybody else? One of everything. What does that mean? Oh, good, good. Anybody else? Johnny Five. Who had Wally on theirs? Somebody had Wally. Oh, I like that. Biff, what did you have? Phosphorus. So when I contemplated doing this Creative Mornings, I said, and like I do with any project, it's like, what do I want the outcome to be? What do I want everybody to walk away with? And one of the things, obviously, is y'all want to learn or know about different kinds of robots. When I was growing up, and I tell the kids that we talk to, I'm 99 years old. I used to say that consistently until one of the little kids said, Miss Garcia? I said, yeah. He said, you're not really 99, are you? I'm like, no. He said, because if you're 88, you look good for your age. So I kind of stayed away from that. But when I was growing up, the robots that I saw were on Lost in Space. What was the guy's name? Robbie the Robot or something like that. And I was like, oh, cool. And even though my life in education revolves a lot around technology and robotics, when I did research for this morning, I was amazed at all the different kinds of robot activity there is out in the world today. Is everybody familiar with DARPA? Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's part of our the military. And they come up with all these really interesting, sometimes good, sometimes I think not so good stuff. And we were working with a colonel, and he said they got all these science fiction writers together years ago and asked them what their ideas were. Space travel, time travel, robots, doing this, doing that. And he said they walked away from that meeting. Every single thing that a science fiction writer came up with, somebody was working on with DARPA money. Think about it, all the things, you know, the Star Trek, Star Wars, all this other stuff, somebody's out there working on, which I think is great because it taps into our creative abilities. But a lot of the work that is going on is funded by military, like artificial intelligence. I was reading about, you know, there's kind of a moral ground that we have to walk when we talk about robots. The definition of a robot is machines that supplement or enhance human activity. A machine capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically, especially ones programmed by computers. They're now creating robots that function autonomously. In 2 weeks in California, there will be 25 rescue robots that have been commissioned by DARPA, and they are about 6 foot tall, 250 pounds, and their whole reason for being created is for search and rescue. A building collapses, you don't want firefighters or rescue workers to go in there because of the possibility of more people getting hurt, but they can go in, they can clear out debris, they can open doors, they can go up and down stairs, they can ascertain the problems that the people on that have been hurt have and move forward. Now, and sometimes when that happens, you could have clear communication with a robot, and sometimes you don't. In those cases, the robots have a certain algorithm that's written, if this happens and this and this and this and this. Those are great. I think that's wonderful. But then I think, wow, what else could those robots do? You know, it's a little bit scary. There are robot drones that are little robots that can gather up like little bees and go into little cities, and they can attack whatever. Then they have bigger, larger drones that can do that. They have robots that will fulfill manufacturing needs. That's great. But when I was doing this, I said, you know what? We as human beings really have to be conscious of what we're creating and how they could be used. Your intention when you're creating something could be one thing, and just like everything else. I mean, a pen can be used for good or for evil, or a physical motion. You know, if I go like this, you know, to my son, that could be good or bad. It's like, oh, great job, or you're such an idiot. Which doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So when I was thinking about you all, I was thinking about, what do I want you to walk away from here with? Obviously, knowing that there are a whole lot more different kinds of robots, and I'll go into those. And every day, the spectrum gets bigger and bigger and bigger. They're taking mundane and different kinds of jobs and doing them sometimes better than human beings can. For instance, surgical robots. I have artificial shoulders, I have artificial knees, I have artificial hip, I have artificial joints. And when my knees were first put in 1987, it was more like a carpentry project. Seriously, they told me, first of all, you need both replaced, have one, and then 6 months later do another. And I said, are you crazy? If the first one hurts, I might never come back. So I had them both done in one day. And the night before I went to the hospital, my girlfriend threw a party. And she said, she says, I'm really upset. And I was like, why? Have you seen what they do when they replace your knees? I'm like, no, I don't know that I really want to. And she says, they use a saw. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And I walked away. She comes up later, she goes, and they use hammers. I'm like, well, nuts. But it was great because during the surgery, you know, I kind of woke up a little bit and I fear, I'm like, whoa, this must be the saws. And then at one point, it was like my body shaking. I'm like, wow, they must be hammering those things into my body. And the precision with which the surgeon had to do this surgery was, you know, there was a big latitude. Now I'm working with a company based in Fort Lauderdale that has created a robot that can do knee replacements and with a lot of technology be so precise that where my incisions are like here to here, the incision for that can be here. And the ability for them not to affect other parts of the body using robotic technology is great. So, you know, I think that is awesome. I was reading an article where they have a robot that works like an octopus. And I said, okay. But when a doctor is doing robotic surgery, sometimes they need to move organs out of the way. And if you have something that's really hard, you know, moving a robot, an organ out of the way can be a problem. But they have balloon-type appendages that can softly move it out of the way, and then another robot arm can come and do the actual surgery. So there's a lot of advances that are being made that can help a lot of people. There's also a new robot that can work in harvesting and packaging fresh fruits and vegetables. And they can, instead of, you know, grabbing something like this and move it around, they can go in and turn a cabbage, and they can do this and that. So the ability that we have now of creating robots that can be more human-like is great. That's on the one side. On the other side, the ability for them to create robots that can, you know, destroy a lot of things like human beings is getting greater and greater as well. Somebody was asking me, what kind of robots are there? It was you, right? I was saying, you know, what kind of robot it can be? I don't know. What kind of robots are there? So going through, you know, all this list of search, we have industrial robots that pretty much everybody knows. You know, they're in the automotive industry, and they're in all these other things, and they can mechanically do this with appendages. Then they have home care robots, which I think that's a field that's growing tremendously, especially as those of us who are 99 and getting older will need more robot help or more help in the house doing different functions that you're not able to do as you get older. One of the things that we do is my husband and I have a program called Starbot. We've impacted probably a couple thousand students here locally, teaching them from kindergarten through the end of college how to design and build robots. And I'm always the soft-sided one. I teach communication classes and design methodologies, and Bill and our other mentors and teachers teach how do you put motors and speed controllers together, and how do you optimize mechanics to get what you want. Two of our former students, we were just out in California, and they have a company that produces Telepresence Robots. And what that is it's about this high, and it can go up and down. You put an iPad here, and you have an iPad wherever you are, and it can go to meetings. It's like a step up from Skype. And I said, oh, that's really great. He said, but wait, there are students, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fifth grade, high school, that are at home and they want to be in school, believe it or not. You know, after a week or two of, I don't have to go to school. They really miss the interaction with other kids. So this robot goes around on kind of like a Segway platform, and they see your face and you see everybody else's face. And so they can be in the classroom with a teacher and with other students. And it works as well for people not having to spend the money to travel to other meetings. And when I think of what we do with, we start out with these kind of robots teaching kids how things interface with each other, and they move on from there. That's a really exciting thing. Other kinds of robots. They have outer space robots. You know, on the International Space Station, there's a lot of things that are robotically designed to make what they're doing more efficient. I got to work with the guys at JPL NASA when they sent the Mars rover. The Mars rover's Spirit and Opportunity were supposed to be there for 6 months. 5, 6, 7 years later, they're still operating. And I was really excited because I was like, wow, you know, you get to create from anything. But they said, yeah, the problem is in the design process, we have unlimited materials to work with. But we have a limited amount of time to get these designed, built, tested, and ready to be shot out into the universe. And he said that process is creative and it is exciting, but it's also scary because you want to make sure that what you're making here is going to work out there. And they have an idea what's on Mars, but not so much in reality what they can do. So there's a lot of movement and creative innovation in robotics. But I think it's really important that we look at what is our moral obligation, especially to the next generation, of keeping them on track and keeping them focused on keeping robots, recognizing them as machines and not an alternative to human interaction.